speaker, and she's also going to be our last speaker.
Okay, so if I asked you guys to close your eyes and envision a student, you'd probably think of somebody in this room. But if I asked you to envision like a private school student, you might think of somebody, you know, in a uniform, or in a smaller school, coming for more money, that kind of thing. But then if I asked you to think of a homeschool student, you either A, don't have a good idea, or B, might think of somebody who's a little socially awkward, their friends are their parents, they hang out in their backyard all day. Well, fortunately, I'm here to change your thinking. Despite what you may have heard or know about homeschooling, I'm here to show you that students who are homeschooled are receiving a more effective education. Everyone in this room has experienced some type of schooling, and I bet there was a part of you didn't like. Either it was the teacher or the students in your classroom, or the subjects were too hard, they were too easy, or there was something about it you didn't like. With those memories in mind, here are 3 reasons why homeschoolers receive a more effective education. 1, homeschool students are able to learn at their own pace. 2, students are able to participate in planning their education. And 3, homeschool students can avoid bullying. Going back to my first point, homeschool students learn at their own pace. This addresses both sides of the spectrum. Students who excel can work out a curriculum that challenges them. So for example, say you have like a 3rd grader who's really needing to be in 4th grade math. In a traditional public school setting, he'd have to go through that whole year as stuck as a 3rd grader in math, feeling not challenged enough, not really learning. But in a homeschool setting, he can then have 4th grade curriculum, so he's able to learn quicker. And then students who are behind won't be moved to a special kind of class or treated differently. According to the National Center Control for Education Statistics, 35% of students are considered with a learning disability. And learning disabilities include anything from a speech impediment, autism, hearing, orthopedic problems, or health impairments, such as like a heart condition or even like cancer is considered a learning disability. Homeschool students avoid being moved to these special need classes, being held back, or ignored by teachers who have too many students and are not properly equipped. The California Department of Education regulates a classroom size of no more than 30 to 32 students depending on the grade. On grade level, meaning that's one person to try and meet all those 32 students, and there's a wide variety between each student and each student's needing for learning. And then that also helps is they're not conformed to the classroom. It allows students to learn at first-hand experience. A homeschooling parent shared her testimony in a book titled Real Life Homeschooling about how she was going to use something different for language arts. She's going to take advantage of the good literature, poetry, and music that surrounds them in the town they live in, which is St. Louis. So my second point was students who are homeschooled are receiving a more efficient education is these students participate in planning their education. So my mom is a homeschool teacher, and what her students get, say you bring your student, you're then given $1,550 for that year to pay for curriculum, and that can be curriculum or sports teams or anything you want to do. So if a curriculum isn't working, then you can then change the curriculum for the student. According to the school board website, the local board is responsible for developing curriculum, and that's the curriculum for the whole grade across all school boards. And not all students are the same, so they don't all learn the same. So if you're able to give your student a way to learn that is better for them, then that's going to make them a better student overall. So along with getting to choose the curriculum, they get a chance to learn in an environment that works for them. You know, a classroom setting, we sit in a chair and we listen to somebody talk. But say that's not your way of learning. Say you need to read, or you need to go outside and you need to be touching the dirt that you're learning about. Well, they get to move somewhere else. If they want to lay on the floor, they can lay on the floor. That's how they learn better. You know, they don't have to sit, they don't have to be confined. And lastly, when it comes to their part in their education, they get to be a part of real life activities. So Springs Charter School is local to our area and requires their students to participate in life skills and special interests. So not only do they get to participate in recreational activities, but they get to use those funds that I talked about earlier to pay for them. So another parent shared how her kids are able to participate in swim, softball, BMX, and Girl Scouts as learning opportunities to teach her children skills such as dealing with competition, work ethic, developing their personal skills, and this also allows families who come from low socioeconomic levels to be able to put their kids in this, because now it's part of their school. So if you couldn't, pay for lessons or something, you now can because the school is offering it to you. And lastly, my final point as into why homeschooling is creating a more effective education is because of something that has most likely affected everyone in this room, which is bullying. According to the national website of bullying, 49% of students were bullied at least once a month. So that's 1 out of every 2 students is being bullied at least once a month. In a study done in a middle school, the most common form of bullying was name-calling, and then it proceeds in the order of teasing, spreading rumors, pushing, hitting, slapping, or kicking, leaving out, threatening, stealing, sexual comments, and this wasn't including social media. The most common place it happens is in the classroom, which is 30%, the hallway, which is also 30%, the cafeteria, which is 23%, the gym, which is 19%, the bathroom, which is 12%, and the playground. 4 out of these 6 places should have an adult present at all times. And only 20 to 30% of the adults in this study actually reported that students have come to them. So by a student being homeschooled or in a special homeschool program, that's completely eliminating the threats of bullying, and they're not included in the statistics. Because homeschool students aren't subjected to staying in that environment like other public school kids, they don't have to see the same person. So if a kid's getting bullied every day at school and I can't change the classroom they're in or do something, then they don't have to see that person anymore and they don't have to change themselves. The big problem with bullying is perception, so they don't have to do that. These facts against public school are not to talk down on the country's public school system, but to uplift and to bring light upon a system that is allowing homeschool students to receive a more effective education by learning at their own pace, participating and playing their education, and avoiding the effects of bullying. Thank you for your time.
All right, we'll go quickly because I know some of you want to get the hell out of here. The proposition's clearly identified. There's a good preview. You need to explain a little bit more why you need to defend homeschooling. The idea that it's looked down upon, or maybe that people have made comments about it based on recent experiences with people who supposedly are homeschoolers, something like that, so that we know why we're listening to this argument and why it's important. Like I said, the preview structure is pretty fine. Internally, you signpost points pretty well. Most of the things that you explained, I think, were understandable. There's this whole section in the middle where you're talking about how they participate in the curriculum, and there was some reference to the amount of money that they have developing curriculum. I was not clear on what it was you were talking about. At one point, I thought it was like a hypothetical that the student gets a certain amount of money that they can spend for buying things in the curriculum, and they have to learn how to do that. And I go, that doesn't make much sense. I don't think that's what they're talking about. And then I got a reference to an example about a mother who's using this and the school board in the area. And I'm going, wait a second. The school boards are regulating homeschooling? That was not clear also. I'm sure there's an explanation for it. I'm just not clear on what the explanation was here. And partially the problem is, of course, you're trying to get everything in time, and so you don't always have time to explain things as clearly as you might need to. And so sometimes it comes off a little bit cryptically. In that last section, for instance, there's a ton of statistics that you rattle off very fast, and we talked about that the other day. You got a bunch of numbers, and I'm going, okay, I got the general idea. Yeah. But because we got a bucket load of numbers here, that it's not exactly sure what this all means. The main point that you're making is about bullying. You're much less likely to be bullied at home, except by your parent who's the teacher, or your siblings who your parent can then do something about, and they're right there. The idea that there aren't adults supervising the kids everywhere they are at school, that's one of the reasons that bullying takes place, and that's not something that happens at home. That's the argument that you're making, and all the other stuff is an attempt to illustrate it and quantify it, but like I said, it felt a little bit overwhelming at the end. All right, thank you all very much for sticking around.